Hello YouTube. After the Sumeru livestream, I looked into some of the Dendro reactions and holy shit, I got so confused. Like, why is everyone talking about aggravate and spread, and apparently you can mix 3 elements together now? And what the hell is the difference between catalyze and quicken? Spoiler, they're the same fucking thing. I looked into it for hours and there were still so many unanswered questions, so after a couple weeks of literally studying Dendro like I'm gonna be taking the biggest test of my life, I can finally condense all of it and tell you guys every Dendro reaction in a nutshell. Before I got into the video though, I did make a Discord just to chat with some of you guys, so if you're interested, the link's gonna be in the description. Also, I'm gonna be doing like a 12-hour stream when Sumeru comes out, and honestly probably gonna be exploring the entirety of the Sumeru map on the first day. So again, my Twitch is gonna be in the description if you want to watch my first impression of Sumeru. Also, if you saw my last video, I did get COVID, but now since I'm cured, I have no excuse to be lazy anymore, so I'll most likely be streaming every day when Sumeru comes out and just 100% the area in record-breaking speed. But anyway, onto the video. Alright, the first Dendro reaction we're going to be talking about is Bloom. Bloom is the reaction between Dendro and Hydro and spawns a little spore on the ground called a Dendro core. This little core acts sort of like a mine, exploding when an enemy comes in contact with it, dealing AoE Dendro damage. But if it never comes in contact with an enemy, it can also explode 2 other ways. The first way is it just explodes after 5 seconds, and the second way is if you have more than 5 on the field, the old ones will explode when the new ones are placed on the ground. Also, the amount of damage that the core does is scaled off the EM of the character that triggered it. So say you have a Tighnari Bloom team. Since you're building Tighnari on EM anyway, you're going to want an off-field Hydro applier like WANA or Seiun so Tighnari can create Dendro cores every single time he hits the enemy. Alright, that's kind of it with Bloom. Up next though is Catalyze or Quicken or whatever the hell they call it in game. It's the combination between Electro and Dendro. Now, to keep it short, by itself, it actually doesn't do anything, but it's the main reaction you have to trigger before any of the sub-reactions like Aggravate or Spread, which we'll talk about in a bit. Alright, next and last main Dendro reaction is Burning. Now, this reaction is the only Dendro reaction already in the game, and you probably already know about it, but it essentially just deals pyro damage over time every 0.25 seconds for 2 seconds. What I find kind of funny about this reaction is that when the Dendro leaks first came out, it said that Burning was going to do 4 units of pyro. Okay, editing Seiun here. I remember reading it did do 4 units of pyro one time, but for some reason I can't find any place that ever said it did 4 units of pyro. But well, it doesn't matter that much because it got nerfed anyway. Now, I'm not going to get into elemental gauge theory because that's kind of a theory crafter's job, but they actually nerfed it twice before it even came out. So I'm pretty sure it started out at 4 units and then went down to 2 units, and now it's at 1, which is going to be sort of useless. I mean, one of my favorite theory crafters, 1010, made a really good video about Burning in the description if you want to check it out, but other than that, let's move on. Alright, now I said earlier that with Dendro, there are actually sub-reactions apart from just those you can make with just 2 elements. This was kind of the hard part I had to wrap my head around because for the longest time in Genshin, we only had 2 elemental reaction combos. Like Vaporize and Freeze is just only 2 elements. But with the release of Dendro, there's going to be 3, maybe even 4 elements on one team, creating a bunch of reactions at once. But nevertheless, the first sub-reaction we're going to be talking about is centered around the Bloom reaction. First off, Hyper Bloom. When you hit a Dendro core created by Bloom with Electro, it'll jump up in the air and home into the enemy like a rocket. This reaction actually sounds really cool on paper, and if I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of excited to see whether or not you can just make an entire team centered around these little homing rockets. But then again, I don't think it increases damage, and if you have Venti or a really good grouper, then you can just group all of the cores in one area and just force them to explode into one enemy or something. The next Bloom reaction though is Burgeon. When you hit a Dendro core with Pyro, it'll deal more Dendro damage in a larger AoE. In my opinion, this one doesn't sound that good, and I also haven't seen many good scenarios with Burgeon as the main reaction, but since I'm going off leaks, something might come up and the best team might be around Burgeon or something. Now, those are the Bloom reactions. Looks pretty fun, but I personally don't think that's the one that most players are going to be using. And that one is the sub-reactions from Catalyze. Now, earlier I did say Catalyze doesn't do anything on its own, which is true, but it does act as a damage multiplier for the next Electro attack called Aggravate or the next Dendro attack called Spread. Catalyzed or quickened enemies are indicated by the glowing Dendro icon above their head or the lightning bolts coming off their body. The first one I'm going to be talking about though is Aggravate. So basically apply Dendro, apply Electro, then the enemy will be quickened, and then apply Electro again, which will trigger Aggravate. Now with Aggravate and Spread, there is a damage multiplier like Melt, but it isn't that much of an increase. For Aggravate, it increases the damage by 1.15%, and for Spread, it's increased by 1.25%. I mean, there's also additive damage with EM and stuff, but since I hate math, I'm not going to be going over all that, and honestly, most of you probably don't really care. All you really need to know is that you apply Quicken first, and whatever Electro or Dendro attack is next will get buffed. Pretty simple. What I think is going to be weird about some Dendro teams though is that Quicken has a gauge and can get taken off with an Electro or Dendro reaction. Like when you apply an enemy with Cryo and then Pyro, you see how it gets rid of the Cryo? It's going to be sort of the same with Quicken. So if you have a really good Electro applier like Fischl on your team, it might be a bit troublesome to trigger Spread for Dendro main DPS teams. Nevertheless, Spread and Aggravate basically is a buff to every single Electro character in the game, like some Electro Sword users that people might not really use or something. Well, thanks for watching. Dendro's going to be coming out in a couple of hours, and I cannot be more excited. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be doing a 12-hour live stream when Sumeru comes out, so make sure to go follow my Twitch in the description. If you're watching this video as it's out right now, I'm probably streaming already, so say what's up. Also, join the Discord while you're at it. I've been joining it a lot lately, and we need more members. As always, make sure to sub. It's free, and it really helps out the channel and my, career. Okay, I'm going to stop plugging my stuff. Goodbye, everyone.